Headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Obviously, you know all the usual questions. Why are you blocking roads? I've got to get my kid to school, blah, blah, blah. So all of that is old stuff. We know about that. But what chance do you have, however, the big headline, of stopping oil?
So I just want to clarify our demand. Obviously, our title's Just Stop Oil, but what we are asking is for no new fossil fuel developments. We understand that this has to be a transition, but we are in an emergency and it needs to happen now. We need radical change now.
Why is nobody, and I ask this as a genuine question, why is there not, as far as I can see, and maybe you can correct me on this, I can't find a world leader anywhere, even St. Jacinda down there in New Zealand, who's largely popular with environmentalists. I can't find anyone who's echoing your sentiments on this. Why is that?
I think there are plenty of people echoing our sentiment. When you have people like Professor Sir David King, who used to be the chief scientific advisor for the UK government, telling us that what we do in the next 2 to 3 years is going to determine the future of humanity. When you have the International Energy Agency saying we can have no new fossil fuel developments if we're serious about tackling this crisis. And when you have people like the UN Secretary General saying that delay equals death, these aren't radical people. How much more do we need to hear?
But we're not hearing. There's no one world leader that I can see who has taken up the mantle and said, OK, I'm listening to the XR guys. I'm listening to the Just Stop Oil people. This makes a ton of sense. There's various people. You've just quoted some of them. There are actually many more, of course, who are saying this. Why is there not a leader anywhere on planet Earth that agrees with you?
Well, I think you're right in saying that leaders aren't, they're not taking this on, and they need to be. And that's why we're doing what we're doing, because as normal people, we need change. It is our futures that are on the line. And if governments aren't acting, then it's our responsibility.
We're talking about death here, Claudia, aren't we?
We are talking about
You're saying emergency. And yet, if that was the case, we know what world leaders did when COVID was around, when a pandemic came around. They acted and they went, this is really serious, better lock stuff down.
It's a totally inadequate response. We saw, rich countries hoarding vaccines, not helping out developing nations that need that help. And
well, that may be the case, but my point is they sprang into action in terms of locking down half the Western world.
Corrupt. We've seen Priti Patel get £100,000 donation from someone who is incredibly closely linked to oil development. They are...
Well, that's not illegal.
No, but I'm saying it's corrupt.
Well, it's corrupt in your mind because of what you stand for. But my point is that governments are capable of taking unprecedented decisions.
IPCC report? Have you read the latest IPCC report?
Go on, tell me more.
Well, it just highlights how serious and drastic the situation is. And it also gives us plenty...
But they must have read that as well. So all I'm saying...
Why are they not acting?
Well, that's my point. Maybe they're not acting because they haven't...
following the advice of chief scientists.
So no one on the planet, despite the fact we know that governments can, if they have to, take uncomfortable decisions... Why are they not doing that? That might suggest that they've also read that report and claimed to a different conclusion, and maybe it's bad, but things need to be done. But not as bad as you're saying. You're saying
that delay equals
you're predicting
death,
Armageddon.
That we are on a fast track to climate disaster.
Yeah.
We need to act, and we need to act now.
So, but no one is, literally no world leader agrees with you.
Hypothetical issue. People are suffering right now. People in the global south who are experiencing the brunt of it, okay? My family, they're from Latin America. And in Chile, we've experienced drought for over a decade now as a result of the climate crisis. And we've seen lakes that used to be the size of Central Park in New York, which are barely nothing now.
I get that. We have seen...
displaced. So why are we not acting?
Listen, well, I'm almost concurring with you in a curious way, but that it might be that all of those world leaders and all of their advisors who deal with this day in, day out have looked at it and said, do you know what? There's things we need to do. Some things change naturally. We can look at...
Not at this scale.
Extreme weather conditions have happened time and time again.
Not like this.
We used to... How many people have died of extreme...
We've seen the flooding in Germany. We have people suffering mass starvation in Madagascar, which has been declared to be a result of the climate crisis.
Who's declared that? Who has declared that?
The UN.
So the United Nations have said that's because of climate crisis. Okay, so but even the United Nations aren't calling for a stop in oil.
They are saying that we need to rapidly detransition, which is what we are asking to do. The longer we delay it, the worse it will be, and the more people will suffer. And we cannot wait for the UK to be hit the way other countries have been hit. It will be too late.
Why?
We have been told we have a rapidly closing window of opportunity to act.
Which no one in power agrees with that, clearly.
They are not denying that we need to transition. They are slowing it down, and delay equals death. So yes, we need them to act now. And we, as ordinary people, as people who want a future for our children, we need to demand that that action happens now. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
How do we explain that more people died in the past of extreme weather conditions than have died in the last 50 years of extreme weather conditions?
That is untrue. That is categorically untrue.
It's not untrue at all.
We have people dying of mass starvation. We have mass crop failure. We have people dying from extreme weather events.
So you're saying people are dying of mass starvation because of climate change?
Have you seen what is happening in Madagascar? Mothers
I have seen droughts
and tell me that we do not need to take action now.
I have seen droughts and famines sadly in many countries over the decades, and it's horrendous to see that. But are you seriously saying that if we stopped all of this,
delay equals death,
we'd have no droughts or famine?
Not taking action.
But do you think there'd be no droughts or famine for the rest of time if we stopped oil now?
Incredibly worse than we can imagine. Okay, Antonio Guterres described a future that is filled with mass flooding, mass fires, crop failure, and it getting worse and worse if we do not take action now. And he made a point to say this is not an exaggeration.
No, I hear what he's saying. I hear what he's saying. A lot of voices said it in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. They predicted in 10 years' time this is where we'll be, and it didn't happen. So maybe. But
it is happening right now. You cannot deny that it is happening. Just look around you. Do you look around and not care, or how are you still living in denial?
Well, I'm not living in denial. I'm curious.
That is my family that I worry about every day. I worry that if something happens, they're not going to have enough water. They're not going to have things that they need to survive. And it's not just people in the global south. It's going to be our children. If we continue down this path, we have been warned that children born today will be fighting and struggling for food by the time they are teenagers.
Okay, that's an opinion of some people, not the opinion of the wider world.
As a result of the fault of our energy system.
But again, Claudia, I'm genuinely intrigued, and again, I have no issue with what you've said. I understand your passion, but why is it not shared? Why is it not shared, Claudia? But why is it not shared? That something is catching.
You have people screaming out for help.
You are screaming out for help. Lots of pressure groups, lots of organisations. Where are the world leaders? I'm just asking that you are. When a pandemic happened, we closed the world to react to it.
But we need an emergency response now.
My point is, governments are capable of taking extreme decisions if they think it's right.
So why are they not doing it?
That's the question I'm asking you.
We're on the same page. The government can take an emergency response.
The fact that they're not doing it, the fact they're not doing it,
because
and nobody is doing it.
They are corrupt.
Well, that's just, if I might say so, that's a kind of political point you're making there rather than environmental one.
All connected, because our government are refusing to take action because they're in bed with the oil industry.
Everybody, Trudeau in Canada, Jacinda in New Zealand,
I think
Macron
everyone needs to step up and do better, yes.
So we live in a corrupt world. It's rigged.
Scientists were telling us we need to act now, that we have a rapidly closing window of opportunity and we need to act now.
Okay, and you believe that...
It's our reliance in the fossil fuel industry that has gotten us here in the first place.
Okay.
It is what is fueling the climate crisis. It is what has facilitated the war that is happening in Ukraine now. It is our reliance on this volatile system that has led us to the cost of living crisis. And the answer is not to continue investing in oil. The answer is to transition to more sustainable forms of energy, which will give us a security that the oil industry never has and never will.
On that point, Claudia, thank you for your time.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.